Welcome to Inner Rise. Brilliance isn't loud, it's lethal in silence. And courage doesn't beg to be seen. It changes the atmosphere just by walking in. Let that sink in. You didn't become remarkable because you wanted applause. You became remarkable because truth started leaking out of your pores. And now, whether you like it or not, they're watching you. Here's a wild fact. A recent psychology study found that people are most threatened, not by those who boast, but by those who radiate quiet competence and unshakable conviction. Translation: you. And while you're out here just trying to mind your chosen business, someone's losing sleep, wondering how your mind works, how you survived what was meant to bury you, and why everything you touch turns into revelation. They admire you, oh yes, but it's the kind of admiration that has a little fear mixed with a lot of fascination. Because you don't follow the rules of the Matrix, you don't need a stage to be impactful. Your brilliance is the kind that turns heads without trying. And your courage? Who? It makes cowards break into interpretive dance just to distract from their guilt. You don't say much, but when you move, it's like heaven whispers, watch this. So buckle up because in this video, we're not just talking about your intelligence or your fearlessness. We're about to uncover why you walk like prophecy in motion, why your energy rewrites rooms, and why even those who once mocked you are now mirroring you in secret. Let's get into the real reason why what you do is brilliant, and why they can't stop admiring it, even if their pride won't let them admit it. Admit. Number one, you mastered the art of holding truth that terrifies the masses. You don't just know things, you see through them. That's what makes your intelligence so powerful. It's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about the fact that you can walk into a room and sense what's being hidden, what's not being said, and who's lying to themselves just to keep the peace. You notice energy shifts before anyone even opens their mouth. And when you speak, it's not to impress, it's to expose. That right there, that's what rattles people. That's why they stare at you a little longer than usual. Why they watch their words around you, why they copy your way of thinking and pretend it's theirs. You have the kind of mind that reads between the lines like it's printed in bold. Your truth-telling isn't always verbal. It's in your eyes, your silence, your reactions that say more than a 10-minute speech ever could. And the scariest part for most people, you're rarely wrong. Your intuition is so refined, your perception so sharp that even when you don't have proof, your gut feelings unfold into reality. You know who's genuine, who's faking it, who's wounded, and who's using charm to cover control. You decode people like a living polygraph test. And that brilliance, it's not learned from books. It's earned from betrayal, observation, and staying quiet long enough to know. That's what people admire but can't quite explain. They call it wise beyond your years or say you're scary, accurate. But deep down, they're stunned by how you can move through life, seeing straight through illusions that others get trapped in. And that's not just intelligence. That's spiritual clarity. That's why people watch you with fascination, even if they don't say it. You hold truth that's too heavy for most people to carry, and you carry it without making a show out of it. It's intimidating, no doubt, because you don't just have knowledge, you have knowing. And that kind of knowing doesn't just make you brilliant, it makes you unforgettable. That's what they really admire. That's what they're low-key obsessed with. And that's why they'll never forget how it felt when you looked them in the eye and saw everything. Number two, you turn chaos into patterns while others get lost in the storm. You don't panic when life gets messy. You process while everyone else is reacting, spiraling, or reaching for distractions. Your mind is already dissecting the situation like a puzzle. You see patterns in chaos. You pick up on what caused the storm, not just how loud it is. That's a rare gift. And most people don't even realize they're witnessing it when they watch you. They just know that when everything's falling apart, you somehow manage to keep your head, your soul, and your sense intact. That's not luck. That's brilliance rooted in inner structure. Your mind isn't wired to just survive. It's wired to understand. You don't settle for surface answers. You go deeper. You notice the repeat cycles, the hidden triggers, the spiritual timing of things. Where others see coincidence, you see alignment. Where they see delays, you see divine redirection. And that shift in perception is what separates you. It's not just intelligence, it's consciousness. And that's what makes people admire you. Even if they can't keep up with how your mind works, you've trained yourself, probably through years of struggle, to stay calm where others lose themselves. You ask better questions. You don't just want to fix the fire. You want to know who lit it, why it's burning, and how not to let it consume you. That kind of insight doesn't come from textbooks. It comes from pain, patience, and spiritual maturity. It's why people come to you when everything feels like it's collapsing, because your presence feels like order in the middle of disorder. What you do is so subtle, most miss it. But the ones who are paying attention, they know. They know your brilliance isn't about being loud or flashy. It's in how you connect the dots no one else sees, how you read between the moments, how you hear what wasn't said and still walk with empathy. That's not normal. That's a gift. And it's terrifying to those who live in denial. You're not just intelligent, you're built for revelation. And that's why even your silence during chaos feels like leadership. They may not always say it, but deep down they know. You're the calm they wish they could be. Number 3, your brilliance is in the way you weaponize your pain without bleeding on anyone. You didn't just go through pain, you studied it. You felt every inch of the heartbreak, betrayal, abandonment, and confusion. And instead of letting it harden you, you learned from it. You didn't turn your wounds into weapons to harm innocent people. You turned them into wisdom, boundaries, discernment, and depth. That's why your presence carries weight. People can't always explain it, but when they're around you, they feel safer. Not because you're soft, but because you're intentional. You've been through enough to know how it feels to be torn down, and you refuse to become the kind of person who does the tearing. What people admire about you, even if they don't fully understand it, is how you carry your scars with power, not pity. You've been through situations that would have left most people bitter, vengeful, or emotionally shut down. But you did something different. You let the pain shape you without letting it define you. That takes a level of courage most people don't have. And let's be honest, nobody taught you how to do that. You had to figure it out while bleeding, while being misunderstood, while being gaslit, while feeling alone. That's brilliance born in the dark. You know how to stand in a room full of people and not project your pain onto anyone? That's not weakness. That's self-control. That's spiritual strength. It's the reason why people are drawn to your energy but can't always match it. You don't need to lash out to feel powerful. You've mastered the ability to feel deeply without being destroyed by those feelings. That's emotional intelligence on a whole different level. It's also why people trust you more than they say. They know you've been through some serious stuff and still chose to be kind. That hits different because real courage isn't just about fighting battles. It's about not becoming the very thing that tried to destroy you. You don't carry pain like a weapon. You carry it like a lesson. That's why you're admired. Not just for surviving, but for what you did with the survival. You turned suffering into strategy. You didn't just heal, you transformed. And now, without trying to prove anything, your life speaks louder than your pain ever could. Number 4, you think in layers while others react in loops. You don't just think deep thoughts, you think in dimensions. While most people are stuck in a loop of what happened and how it made them feel, your mind is already 5 layers ahead, working through what caused it, what it's connected to, who benefits from the confusion, and what future is being shaped by it. That's what makes your intelligence intimidating. You don't react, you analyze, you don't just respond, you strategize. And because of that, people often misunderstand you. Some think you're too detached, others think you're too intense. But what they don't see is that while they're trying to win the moment, you're out here studying the whole matrix. You see beneath the words, beneath the behaviors, beneath the distractions. You understand that most people operate on autopilot, looping through old wounds and calling it personality. But you broke the loop. You paused, examined, decoded, and rewired. And that's why you're so hard to manipulate. You don't fall for the bait. You don't chase validation. You don't need the last word because you already know how the story ends. And that drives certain people crazy because if they can't provoke you, they can't control you. What you do mentally isn't just intelligence. It's architectural. You don't just think about what is. You see what could be, what should be, and what's silently shaping everything beneath the surface. You sense the undercurrents in conversations, the patterns in behavior, the cracks in a polished performance. You know when someone's smile is hiding resentment. You know when a compliment is really a setup. You're not paranoid, you're aware, hyper aware. And that awareness gives you power most people don't understand. You've stopped arguing because you realized most people are reacting from unresolved pain, not real logic. You've stopped explaining because you realize some people need to misunderstand you to protect their fragile ego. You've stopped overthinking, not because you stopped caring, but because you now understand that truth doesn't always require an audience. You think in layers, and that's not just rare, it's dangerous in the best way. Because in a world trained to react, you're one of the few who knows how to respond with clarity, purpose, and precision. That's not just brilliance, that's mastery. Number 5, you are the mirror that refuses to lie. You don't have to say much. Your presence alone speaks volumes. People feel seen around you, sometimes uncomfortably so. And it's not because you're harsh or trying to prove anything. It's because you don't perform. You don't fake laugh. You don't pretend to agree. You don't shrink yourself to avoid tension. You show up as you are. And that raw honesty disarms people who are used to masks. You reflect back to them the truth they've spent years trying to hide, even from themselves. And that's why some admire you while others run from you. You're not the type to call someone out in public or humiliate them with truth. But you will look them in the eye and hold a silence that forces honesty. You don't play games, and that alone disrupts everything. Your energy holds a kind of quiet standard. If someone's being fake, they can feel your spirit side eyeing them before you even speak. You don't need to expose people. They end up exposing themselves in your presence. And the wild part is, you're not even trying to be intimidating. You're just not invested in illusions. You're not here to enable the lies people tell themselves to feel comfortable. You know the cost of lying to yourself, you've been there. And that's exactly why you chose truth as your path. Not the filtered, watered down version, but the gritty, soul revealing kind that transforms everything it touches. That kind of honesty takes courage. And it's rare because most people want to be liked more than they want to be real. But you've reached a point where being real is your safety. You can't go back to pretending, and you won't contort yourself just to be accepted. That level of authenticity is revolutionary in a world built on performance. So yes, people admire you, but they also don't know what to do with someone who doesn't flinch, doesn't fake it, and doesn't need approval to feel whole. You're the mirror that refuses to lie. And for some, that's the first time they've truly seen themselves. That's not just powerful, that's world-shifting. Number 6, your courage lies in how you refuse to betray your own soul. There's a different kind of strength in someone who chooses their own soul over applause. And that's exactly the kind of courage you carry. You've been in situations where compromise looked tempting, opportunities that promised success, relationships that offered comfort, and communities that dangled approval. All on the condition that you dim yourself, but something in you couldn't go through with it. Not because you weren't afraid, but because betraying your own truth felt worse than losing anything this world could offer. That kind of choice isn't always loud. You didn't throw a dramatic exit or make a spectacle. Sometimes you just got quiet. Sometimes you just stopped showing up. Sometimes you just pulled your energy. You're not out here begging to be seen. And that's exactly why you're watched so closely. Your quiet confidence unsettles the loud performers. Your originality exposes the rehearsed. Your unfiltered intelligence challenges the curated. And that kind of presence, it leaves a mark. People can deny everything about you except how you made them think differently. That's the irony. You're never the loudest. You're just the most real. And realness in a world built on filters and fakeness is a revolutionary act. You don't need a spotlight. You are the light. And no matter how many people mimic the style, the essence remains yours. They study you in secret. They emulate you in silence because deep down they know your originality isn't just inspiring, it's undeniable. Number 9, you know how to be both sword and sanctuary. You're not someone people can easily label. You're not always soft and you're not always hard, but you know exactly when to be either. That's what makes you powerful. People often expect others to fit into neat categories: kind or cold, gentle or guarded, loving or ruthless. But you've shattered that illusion. You've mastered the art of discernment, knowing when to offer compassion and when to draw a line so sharp it bleeds ego. That kind of duality doesn't come from theory. It comes from living, losing, learning, and rising. You didn't get this balance by accident. You had to survive situations that demanded both strength and softness. You had to defend your peace while still keeping your heart open. You had to deal with people who mistook your kindness for weakness. And you let them find out the hard way that you're not the one. And now you carry that rare energy that comforts the wounded but warns the manipulative. You walk into a space and people feel it. The presence of someone who sees through everything, yet still chooses love where love is possible. You don't use your sharpness recklessly. You don't lash out for attention. You don't need to prove your power. You save it for when it counts. When someone crosses a boundary, when injustice shows its face, when someone tries to gaslight you into silence, that's when your sword comes out. But when someone's hurting, confused, or trying to grow, you become sanctuary, safe, still, understanding. That's the kind of person the world doesn't know how to describe but never forgets. This ability to be both protector and healer, both force and peace, is spiritual intelligence. It's the reason people respect you, even if they don't fully understand you. They can sense that you've done the work, that your fire has direction, and your compassion has standards. You're not ruled by emotions, but you're not numb either. You feel deeply and you respond wisely. That's why your energy is unforgettable. You hold space for truth without sugarcoating it. You offer love without lowering your standards. You don't just react, you respond with purpose. That's not just emotional maturity, that's divine balance. And it's what makes you both a sword and a sanctuary depending on who you're dealing with. Number 10, your brilliance is in how you stay unbothered by trends and untamed by approval. You're not out here trying to impress anyone, and that alone makes people stop and stare. You don't chase the spotlight. You don't bend to what's trending. You don't change your language, your values, or your vision just to blend in. And while others are running themselves into exhaustion, trying to keep up with the next viral moment, you're steady, focused, and strangely untouchable. That's the kind of brilliance people don't always understand, but they feel it. You're not loud about what you believe, but your consistency makes noise. You move from conviction, not convenience. Even when your path feels lonely or misunderstood, you don't shift just to fit the mold. Because you've learned that the truth doesn't need a crowd, it just needs someone courageous enough to live it. That's you. While others are shape-shifting to stay liked, you've mastered staying rooted in what you know is real. And that kind of authenticity, it cuts through every performance. It rattles egos. It shines without trying. You've always been ahead, not because you're trying to be different, but because your spirit doesn't follow artificial timelines. You sense what's coming before it arrives. You live from the inside out. And while some mock you now, they'll end up echoing you later, quoting your thoughts, following your moves, even imitating your style because they're only now catching up to what you saw years ago. That's not trendiness. That's timelessness. And here's the thing. People often mistake your calm for indifference. But the truth is, you care deeply, just not about approval. You don't need a stage to feel valid. You don't need likes to feel real. Your decisions are guided by a knowing, an inner compass that doesn't shake when the culture shifts. And that's what truly threatens those who rely on attention to feel worthy. You're not trying to be a part of the moment. You are the moment. You move with purpose, not popularity. And while others may temporarily outshine you, your consistency will outlast them. You don't just survive the trends, you transcend them. That's not rebellion. That's brilliance with backbone. Number 11, you didn't just wake up. You were risen through fire. You didn't just have a breakthrough one morning. You were dragged through the kind of pain that most people spend their lives trying to avoid. You've known what it's like to lose yourself so completely, that you had to rebuild not just your confidence, but your entire sense of self. And that's why your presence carries so much weight. People admire your light, but they have no idea how much darkness you had to crawl through to find it. This version of you wasn't born from ease, it was forged in fire. There's nothing soft or shallow about your strength. It wasn't built through motivational quotes or self help trends, it was built in silence. In nights where no one checked on you and moments where your only option was to get up or disappear, you didn't just survive what tried to kill your spirit, you let it teach you. And because of that, your wisdom has roots. It's not borrowed, it's not recycled, it's real. Your mind became sharp because you had to think your way through chaos. Your heart became discerning because you had to figure out who was safe when no one wore masks. Because the truth revealed itself through abandonment. And your voice, it didn't grow strong from being heard. It grew strong from being ignored and speaking. Anyway, that's what people feel when they hear you now. Not empty inspiration, but authority. The kind that only comes from walking through fire and coming out with something sacred. You don't romanticize pain, but you've made peace with it. You don't seek revenge, you seek clarity. And now you carry a quiet power that makes people pause because they can feel that you've been through something deep, something refining. And instead of letting it destroy you, you let it remake you stronger, sharper, clearer. That's why you're admired. Not because you glow or seem positive, but because you're real. Real in a way that can't be faked. Real in a way that only comes from being broken open and choosing not to harden. You didn't just wake up like this. You rose from the ashes. And now you're unstoppable, not because you're unscarred, but because you're resurrected. Number 12. You embody the wisdom. They're too impatient to learn. You didn't download this wisdom, you earned it. One heartbreak, one betrayal, one silent night at a time. There were no shortcuts for you. No one handed you a map. You had to learn everything the hard way. While others were chasing validation, you were out there losing everything that wasn't real. And through every loss, every unanswered prayer, every season of isolation, you were being shaped into someone unshakable. That's the part they don't see. They want the way you speak with authority, but not the years it took for you to reclaim your voice. They want your calm presence, but not the battles you had to face just to find your peace. They want the outcomes of your journey, the clarity, the influence, the way people lean in when you talk. But they skip the process. And that's the problem, because wisdom like yours isn't a trend. It's sacrifice turned into structure. You embodied depth in a world hooked on speed. While others rushed to become visible, you stayed in the shadows and did the real work. The emotional work, the spiritual work, the uncomfortable self-reflection that most people avoid. That's what gave you your edge. You know how to sit with truth when it hurts. You know how to be your own healer. You know how to walk away from what's popular in order to stay loyal to what's true. And now you're becoming someone even your past self wouldn't recognize. Not because you've changed, but because you've grown. You've refined. You've peeled back the layers of programming, fear, ego, and shame until all that's left is you. Whole, rooted, solid. People admire you not because you know more, but because you carry more. You carry the kind of understanding that can't be Googled. You know what pain teaches, not just what it feels like. You've turned every closed door into a gateway, every silence into strategy, every delay into discipline. So yes, they admire you, but they don't realize they're admiring the result of everything they're too impatient to face because your glow didn't come from light. It came from fire. And you survived it wiser, quieter, and far more dangerous. Number 13, you see what's coming, and that's why they call you too much. You've always been a few steps ahead. Not because you're trying to be, but because that's just how your spirit operates. While everyone else is still adjusting to what's happening, you've already moved on to what's next. You sense shifts before they even take form. You feel lies before they're spoken. You see through people before they finish performing. And because of that, you rarely overstay in places that no longer fit. You exit quietly but purposefully. And to those still tethered to delay and confusion, that feels like rebellion. But your foresight is not rebellion. It's alignment. You're wired to anticipate, to prepare, to discern. And because you don't wait for external permission to move, people label you too much, too intense, too serious. But that's just the language of those who live by reaction, not revelation. They don't understand how you already see consequences they haven't even caused yet. They're still reacting to the moment while you're strategizing for the outcome. That kind of vision is threatening. It makes manipulators nervous. It frustrates control freaks because they can't keep you in their web. You don't play along long enough. You sense the game early and step off the board, not out of fear, but because you already know where it ends. You don't need proof to trust your inner knowing. You've been burned enough times to recognize the scent of betrayal before the flame even reaches you. And yet, no matter how much they misread you, they remember you because your presence lingers. Your decisions ripple. Your silence speaks volumes. Not because it's passive, but because it's loaded with discernment. You don't waste your voice where your vision has already spoken. You weren't made for reaction. You were made for foresight, for shaping what's ahead, not just surviving what is. And that's why people both admire and misunderstand you, because you don't just move differently. You are different. You're not ahead of the trend. You're beyond the timeline. You're not confusing. You're just hard to control. And for those who need control to feel powerful, your freedom looks like a threat. But for the awake, you're a revelation. Number 14, you don't need to be liked. You came to be legendary. You stopped bending yourself into shapes just to fit in with people who never intended to understand you. That's the shift they felt when you stopped auditioning and started occupying. You weren't born to be a background character in someone else's comfort zone. You didn't go through years of unlearning, healing, confronting, and rebuilding just to become another watered-down version of yourself. You came to stand out loudly, boldly, and unapologetically. There's a reason your presence feels like a disruption. Because it is. You walk into spaces and something shifts. Not because you're trying to dominate, but because your energy doesn't conform. You're not playing the game of please like me. You're playing the long game of be legendary. And that's a frequency most people aren't used to. It challenges them. It wakes something up in them they've spent years numbing. People admire you. Even if they won't say it, they watch how you move, how you choose yourself without becoming arrogant, how you speak truth without folding under pressure, how you hold your ground even when it's lonely. That kind of integrity is rare. That kind of self-respect revolutionary because the world is full of performers. But you're proof. Proof that you don't have to be liked to be powerful. You just have to be true. You were never meant to be easily digestible. Your mission is too big for that. You're here to ignite, not to entertain. You're here to challenge systems, not be invited into them. You were chosen because your voice carries something raw, something ancient, something that disrupts illusions and brings people face to face with the truth they've been avoiding. And that makes you unforgettable. Not because of your appearance or personality, but because of your essence. The unshakable, unfiltered essence of someone who knows who they are. Let them whisper. Let them misunderstand. Legends are always uncomfortable in real time, but you're not here for applause. You're here to leave a mark, and you will. Not by being agreeable, but by being undeniable. You weren't built for approval. You were built for impact, and every part of your journey proves it. While the world trained people to chase applause, you chased alignment. While others sought safety and sameness, you embraced the fire of becoming. You've taken the harder road, the lonelier one, and turned it into sacred ground. You've shown what real brilliance looks like. Not just intellect, but integrity. Not just courage, but consistency. Not just talent, but truth. They admire you because you do what most are too afraid to even attempt. Live from the soul and refuse to fold. You think in layers. You confront what others bury. You move with purpose that can't be packaged. You're not just smart, you're sovereign. And whether they applaud or attack, deep down, they know you are rare, you are real, you are unforgettable. So don't shrink. Don't soften. Don't apologize for what sets you apart. You didn't come to blend in. You came to blaze trails, shatter illusions, and embody what freedom looks like in human form. You're not here for the echo. You are the voice. Stay bold, stay grounded, and most of all, stay true. Because the world doesn't need another crowd pleaser. It needs more legends like you. If this message spoke to your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Like the video, drop a comment below, and let me know which part hit the deepest. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and make sure to turn on your notifications so you never miss what's coming next. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them because truth like this deserves to travel. Let's keep building this powerful community of bold, brilliant, and spiritually grounded souls. You're not alone. You're chosen. Let's rise together. God bless you.